Frank, you've been involved in plenty of rematches in your time. So what are you expecting when Lyndon Arthur and Anthony Yarde step in the ring on Saturday?
Well, the first fight was a good fight to watch, but it weren't as good as I expected it to be. You know, Anthony didn't just, in my opinion, was being quite repetitive for at least 10 rounds, doing the same thing. And Lyndon said he had a problem with his right hand, so he worked off his jab. There was nothing in the fight. I thought Lyndon won it, but it didn't quite spark as I expected it to. This one, I think, really will. And the reason I feel that is because Lyndon's number one. They're fighting for that number one position. We got the fight's being announced today between Callum Johnson. You know, he's getting a big shot at the world title fight. So the winner of that will fight the winner of the fight on Saturday. So they got something there to aim for. And I think the fact they've got a live crowd in there, the fact there's no complaints now about bad hands. There's Anthony says he's adjusting what he's done. He's brought somebody else to his team. So if they're at the top of their game, I think we're going to see a real competitive and I think a really exciting and explosive fight.
As you were saying on stage, it almost feels like a world title eliminated with that fight between Joe Smith Jr. and Callum Johnson at the start of next year. How much certainty do you have that the winner of this fight would take on the winner of that fight?
Well, it'll be ordered because it'll be a mandatory from the WBO. And Bob Arrow and I have been discussing it, so that's how we made the fight with Callum. So that's the idea of it. The winner of Saturday fights the winner of the fight in January.
Caught up with Bob Arum the other day and we were talking about what's next for Tyson. I'm sure you've been asked plenty of times. And he seems to feel that, despite the fact that what has happened with the WBC, that Dillian Whyte is the logical next fight for Tyson Fury. Is that what you're thinking?
Look, the next fight for Tyson, what I'd like to see is the unification with him and Usyk. That's the fight all of us want because it's the two best, the best fighting the best. What stops it from happening? One thing, and that's AJ. AJ did an interview over the last weekend, and he went on for various things about his legacy and various other things. But he said the most telling thing is the bottom line. He's a businessman. So if he's a businessman, it's all about: is there a number that can accommodate him to step aside? And if that can be done, then we can get that fight on. If we can't get it on, and we've got to think if we can't get it done in the next 7-8 days, then we've got to move to Plan B, and Plan B will be for Tyson to fight in March in the UK in a meaningful fight, somebody who's ranked in the WBC's top 10, and that's what we'll be working towards. Dillian Whyte, yeah, I've got no problem doing that fight, providing he's sensible.
Well, we had a chat about that last week, and you spoke about what the split would be, and obviously it would naturally favour Tyson considerably. But
exactly.
Have Dillian's team come back and been slightly more reasonable with?
I don't know. I mean, he's got an arbitration. I don't know when that's going to be, how long it's going to take. Whatever happens at the arbitration, I feel quite confident that they're not going to give him more than an 80-20 split, and maybe less. The last fight he had, he declared a purse of 300 grand. So, and what they do, they determine what the split is based upon their the purses of the last time they fought. And Tyson got considerably more than that. So, I think that's a foregone conclusion. But he'll get a fair shake if we can make it. But the focus at the moment is trying to get the unification on.
And is that something that you think can happen? AJ seemed to open the door slightly to that. Is that something you're working on now?
That's the only thing that can stop it. And if he's up for it, if he's up for allowing it to happen, and he'll obviously want to fight the winner, then I don't see that being a problem with anybody.
But as far as you're concerned, can you almost guarantee Tyson will fight in March in the UK?
I'll tell you, he will fight in March. Where it's in the UK or whatever, he will fight in March, whatever happens.
In the meantime, Tyson's been training Tommy Fury, hasn't he? The press conference was incredible, really, for a number of reasons last week.
Well, it was, we know what the problems were, and it was unacceptable the way it got out of hand. I wasn't there, unfortunately, because I had an operation on my back, so I couldn't travel. But it was unfortunate, and if I'd been there, I'm sure that would not have happened. But it got out of hand, and I know John absolutely regrets what happened. But the fact is, it has happened, and we've got to make sure nothing happens like that again.
And for the sake of boxing, do you feel like it's a fight that Tommy simply needs to win? All the added pressure he's got.
I mean, for the sake of Tommy, I mean, for the sake of boxing, I mean, he won't want to be going home, will he? If he can you imagine going back to the Fury camp, Fury household. He's got to go and do the business.
Are you looking forward to heading out there to Florida and seeing what it's all about, this Jake Paul?
Well, I've been there. I went to the last one. I've seen what it's about, and it's quite an eye-opener. I mean, normally you've got a big event on. It doesn't fill up until probably, a couple of fights before the main event. We got in the doors at 6:30 and it was rammed, and they sat and watched everything. It was a very young audience, but they were really engrossed with it all. So that's the good side of it. It did bring a new audience. What do I think of them both? They're both novices, but they've got, 30-odd million Instagram followers between them. People have bought into this, and God bless them and good luck to them for earning a few quid. Same as, what we've announced over here, or not we've announced, but it's been announced over here this week between the two old codgers getting it back on again. Good luck to them. They get a few quid. They're past their sell-by date, but they're going to get a bit of pension money.
What have you made of that? Because Kell Brook joined you, and I guess his hope then was that he would have a fight against Amir Khan.
Well, I tried to make the fight. They didn't want to know, did they? But the fact of the matter is that, I got Kell into the number one spot. He was ranked number one to fight Pacquiao, and anyway, we went our separate ways. I couldn't be putting up with the interference from his dad. And then, and also with Amir, I guided him to the world title. He won the world title. I think he was the youngest ever world champion at the time. So we did, I did what I had to do with the guys. These things they're doing now, I don't knock them or blame them. People want to buy a ticket or pay-per-view. It's their choice. It's their money. They're well past their sell-by dates. There's no doubt about that.
Finally, I wanted to ask you about Joyce and Daniel Dubois as well, because I think you were disappointed that you couldn't get them out again this year.
Very much.
Let's talk about the WBA first, and when it comes to Daniel, what do you see being the future for him? Because I guess there's frustration that he's not got that fight against Trevor Bryan.
Well, what will happen, a lot's going to happen this side of Christmas, but he will definitely be out in probably early February. That's what we're working towards, and this side of Christmas we had an opponent, so we had it more or less sorted out, but for various reasons it didn't happen. Not our fault, it didn't happen. And the same with Joe. We had to wait because of, again, what was going to happen with the mandatories, what was Usyk with the governing bodies. If you may recall, they all met together. They've had their meeting, but in the meantime, Joe's now, he's number one at the WBO, so something's going to give, and I think he will get a shot at the title sometime late summer. In the meantime, he'll go out again himself in a decent fight sometime in February.
And can you give us an indication on what sort of fight that Joe and Daniel will have next? Because they're in good positions now.
They've got to fight rated guys. I mean, that's what they'll fight. They'll fight rated guys. I want to put them in with guys who are going to give them a fight and test them. They're quality operators. Joe's although his age is what it is, but he's a young professional as such, the amount of fights he's had. And the same with Daniel. Daniel's a young guy and not had that many fights, but we've guided them into great positions. What with Tyson being a world champion, I mean, we've got the best heavyweight in under Queensberry umbrella than anybody in the world. And it's exciting times, and they're all going to, and with Joe and with Daniel, what they got to keep doing is keep moving forward, getting more and more experience, because they're going to get their shot at the world title. There's no doubt about that because of the positions they're in.